Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce and another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond compare.
Jetzt kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von hinten an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away. Oh, what a goal!
Welcome back to Dortmund Dispatch. Today I am joined by Pedro. I'm your host, Eli. We're breaking down Dortmund's win against Monterrey, their loss against Real Madrid, what the Club World Cup has meant for Borussia Dortmund, and more importantly, what you guys care most about, the potential future signings that Dortmund really need to add in defense, in midfield, in attack. And then we have some other news with a player transferring out, but we'll let you know all about that when we get there. Let's start off. What do we have to say about the Monterrey match? If you want to go 2-1, we can do 2-1 because...
I mean, we can do 2-1. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm just pissed overall with this overall performance from Dortmund in the Club World Cup. But first of all, what's up, everybody? Pedro here. Nice to be back in the pod. Unfortunately, I couldn't be in the last episode. I was a little bit sick. I'm still am, actually, but way better, so I can participate in this weekend's episode. But, I mean, speaking of Monterrey alone, I mean, I'm not going to say it was a complete mess, but, I mean, it goes... with the whole mentality of Dortmund, just not taking the competition seriously. Had a really good first half, really good numbers, and we scored 2 easy goals. We made Monterrey look like any other like Bundesliga 2 side, and Dortmund obviously being the superior side in comparison, but still they have some really decent players. But Dortmund was just scoring at ease, and the scoreboard could have been even more extended if Dortmund took some of their chances, especially with Serhou Guirassy. But with the second half was just bananas how we dropped off in terms of form, in terms of effort. And it was a night game, so there's not even an excuse. It was too hot for the players to really feel the impact of the weather within this match. So I'm not really a big fan of the second half performance. And yeah, I mean, we didn't create any big chances in the second half. I was surprised when I saw the stats. We had 2 shots on not on goal, but shots overall. And I was thinking, oh my God, when did we shoot? Like, Monterrey dominated the whole second half, and we obviously the better side. And I mean, we could have been kicked out of the competition. Like, we could have just like conceded another goal, go to an extra time, which exactly what the players didn't want to do. I mean, they didn't even want to be in this competition in this first place. So, yeah, just disappointed overall with the Monterrey match. Do you want to say anything about that match specifically, Eli, before we jump into the big game against Madrid?
I want to talk about this because I think that you're getting like a little too involved for what this is. This tournament, the Club World Cup, I don't care. I don't. I really don't. I tried to care. Match 1. I couldn't do it. I could not. And so then I look at it from the club perspective. We have to play it. You can't just like run out like the U15s and embarrass yourselves. There is money at play, but I want the money, but I don't want any of my players to pick up a serious injury. And hopefully Duranville's shoulder thing is very minor. My players didn't work too hard in any of these matches except for the Real Madrid one, which is cool. Like, you play Real Madrid, all of a sudden the stakes are there, you try a little bit, you don't embarrass yourselves. I can't complain about us missing our key signing, our number 1 priority. It was the first signing we did, not cheap. We're missing him. Our other first choice midfielder is not fit and not fit to start. So to be missing essentially 2 first choice players and to hold your own against Real Madrid, I really don't care. Like, also, another caveat to like, did Dortmund suck in every match? Was it terrible to watch? Yes, but also Dortmund, I think, were severely disadvantaged in this because you have a squad that's just not set up to play this tournament because your replacement for Nico Schlotterbeck, who is injured, is Sumela Koulibaly, who you can't even play because he's negotiating a transfer. And then you're like only attacker off the bench. Like we had addition to some of the transfer stuff where you have two of your like supposedly senior level players unable to play because they're negotiating transfers out. You can't bring like you only have so much time to bring guys in. And so I really can't complain. If you're hearing any noise, that is my new kitten. Or my girlfriend's new kitten. It is running around, so if you hear any like weird scratching noises, I apologize. But yeah, so like you have these guys in your squad who are supposed to be key players, but you can't play them because they're negotiating transfers away. You have essentially gotten out of this tournament with showcasing and expanding your like American fan base, having some great activation events for them. And like a lot of my friends went to them. They really appreciate it. I did not. But that's good for the club long term. And it allows them to kind of show more of the club culture, the club spirit with some of the people who are serious supporters here. And like in terms of the results, we didn't embarrass ourselves. We did the minimum I would have asked for at the start of the tournament. I won't say a positive word, or anything. I shouldn't say that. I would say positive words, but nothing spectacular. And it's just fine. It's fine. We did what we needed to do. But basically, like the squad's in transition. You don't have the full amount of time you'd want to sign players, and we did the minimum I would have asked for at the start of the tournament. We made like 50, 60 million euros. Hopefully that gets reinvested into the squad in a way that's pretty wise, and we'll be giving them some good recommendations later. Like you can talk about how a lot of that Real Madrid match is pretty poor, but at the end of the day, it took a Kylian Mbappe like bicycle kick and a like great save that Courtois should make most times. For Real Madrid to not get taken by us to extra time. So really, I can only say positive things about that tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have different perspectives as well. And I was talking to Brian and with his friend from the Brooklyn fan club in the previous episode. I think I am more invested in this tournament because here in Brazil we take these things more seriously, which makes total sense. It's a cultural thing. You guys are not used to it. Like it's not really like within the calendar. Like it expands a little bit the amount of games, especially for European clubs to play. And we are used to that in Brazil, so it doesn't really impact us that much. So we keep thinking, oh, why are you guys complaining? We play 70 matches a season. Why are you guys complaining just to play like a few matches, extra matches in such an important competition? But that's just a different perspective. There's nothing wrong or on like liking or not liking the competition. Everyone has their own taste. But we're really frustrated me in the competition overall, and we're also gonna get into the Madrid game right now is that like Borussia Dortmund, and I was talking to a friend of mine about that the other day. Borussia Dortmund is not a club that has the luxury of saying like, no, I'm not gonna take this competition seriously. It's not like we're winning trophies every now and then, so we can just like forget about this competition. I mean, clubs like Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, like Chelsea, Atletico Madrid. Okay, Atletico is not a good example because they also got kicked out in the group stage. But I mean, all these three clubs, they are in the semifinals now. Or no, sorry, not in the semifinals, but they got to the quarterfinals. I think PSG also is the other club I wanted to cite. And they're winning cups every now and then, and Dortmund is not. And they're taking that competition seriously. So I think that also goes into the Dortmund mentality, and it's a problem that we've been discussing like through the past few seasons. Where is the Dortmund winning mentality? We don't see that in the squad. And even though that competition is not as important as a Bundesliga, as a Champions League, and I completely agree with that, I mean, Dortmund is not the kind of club that can has the luxury to throw the competition away because that's a chance to win a trophy. That's a chance to expand the brand for like different audiences. You have the chance to play a unique tournament where you can showcase why German football is also on the peak of football, not only Europe but also in the whole world. So I don't really understand why you would not take that competition seriously when clubs like Real Madrid, the PSGs, and Bayern Munich are taking that competition seriously. and playing the best football as they can to expand the brand, get some money in the process, and eventually a trophy. Like Dortmund has not the
But
luxury to just forget about this competition. You go.
I don't think that's necessarily the case. Like I don't think the players are phoning it in. I don't think any of that. Like I've made some joking comments about that, and like maybe that's partially the case, but you can't really criticize them for phoning it in a little bit against some of the really weak teams when they beat them. Like we topped the group, we beat the teams you would expect us to beat, and against Real Madrid, we clearly did not phone it in. Like that match was played very from a very intense perspective. The biggest issue is like the squad building because there's two of the three goals. You have a fullback that isn't holding the line with your center backs, and they're keeping players onside who should be offside, and that's two of their goals. So I think like the team didn't phone it in. It's not like they didn't try to win the tournament because they may not have tried their hardest against Monterrey. They beat Monterrey, so I can't criticize them for that. I can't criticize them for resting a little bit up like 4-1 against the South African side and letting the game get close. I can criticize them a little bit, but like in terms of the overall performance, they did what they needed to do in the matches they needed to do them against. And like would I have liked to see them beat Fluminense, and do I think we beat Fluminense more times than not? I do, but like at the end of the day, like we played a fine match. Like Fluminense had more shots, but none of them were for good areas. It was a very dull match, and I think that like I'm not worried about that when it's like the first game of a competition. They're like mid-season. We're blooding one of our biggest signings, and like I said, our squad is in transition, and like all the criticisms I have in this tournament kind of go back to our squad being in transition. And so I'm not going to like say there's a mentality issue when we literally were like a couple feet away in a few different moments from taking Real Madrid to extra time, because that's sorry, my cat is eating a wire. But like I can't get too critical of them for that because I think there's like squad issues that I've been critical of for a long time, but like the mentality, like they didn't lose to Real Madrid because of mentality. They lost to Real Madrid because they have fullbacks playing center back, and the fullbacks playing center back really struggled to keep an offsides line, and Remy Bensebaini is a lot worse at distribution than Nico Schlotterbeck. So like there's a lot of different things that I think affected this match, and I think it has nothing to do with mentality. And I think like Thomas Mueller, he wants to throw that dig out because he lost to Benfica. Bayern Munich should never lose to Benfica. Benfica have like no budget in comparison to Bayern Munich. Borussia Dortmund like played a competitive match in every match. They should have won like what like 3 out of the 5 matches they played. The 2 they didn't, they played a very good Fluminense side, who are very much up for the tournament. They're mid-season, and it was our first match in several weeks. And then they lost to Real Madrid, and like you want to talk about like we're able to go out and get Joe Bellingham. We're not able to go out and spend like 60 million euros on a signing bonus for Trent Alexander-Arnold, the best right back in the world, the summer after dropping like 150, and we took it to them in 90 plus 8, and it took a decent save from one of the best goalies in the world to prevent us from going another 30 minutes. So like, is it perfect? No, but like you can't be that critical of this tournament. I
Come
mean,
on.
you
No,
lose
man,
to Real Madrid. You lose to Real Madrid.
of course, but that was a fluke. Like we got those 2 goals out of a fluke. Like if you watch the whole match, we're not even close to scratching them. Like to get even close. A squad that is really good, but they're still on a tactical rebuild. They got a new manager who is really good, by the way. We all know that by Leverkusen, but still, it's a new coach, it's a new system, it's a new way to get those players around. I mean, and I mean, Dortmund got even close to scratch them. Only in the end was this fluke by the end of the match. That only happens with Borussia Dortmund.
But I
Like
mean
we
the
should
goal from
that
Mbappe,
match
the
should
goal from
have been
Mbappe is
easily a
cool, but like
4-0, 5-0 by Real Madrid against us easily because they were
if
the superior team.
Pedro, this is ridiculous because if you look at the XG, and this is before you talk about like the fact that we couldn't hold an offsides line because we're playing fullbacks at center back. Um, it's we lost by like one, and like 50% of the time, if you lose by one XG, you're drawing or you're winning.
But
Like
come on, man, watch the match. The match didn't tell the whole story. Statistics don't tell the whole story. You watch the match, you
I watched
don't
the
see
match.
Dortmund.
We were
The
inferior
match
throughout.
doesn't tell that story.
Pedro, we
Like
didn't start two of our first choice midfielders. Like we can't just go out and replace our like biggest money signing.
Who cares? We still need to be a little bit competitive, and we've not even got even close to that against Real Madrid. Madrid were clearly the better team. We all know that, but they
like
don't need to have
at the
such a
end of the day, the
disappointing.
scoreline's the scoreline.
They
Like
scored such easy goals against us, especially the two first ones were just ridiculous. How easy for them was to score against us. It's ridiculous. We should be like concede goals like that. Oh, the stats. Oh, we made a few shots close to goal when we have high XG.
I mean
Great
it's
business.
mainly the penalty, but like the penalties because we got in behind against Real Madrid. Like the scoreline's the scoreline. It like is this a good performance? No, but like it's a competitive one. Like
Yeah.
it's not like we rolled over and lost 5-2.
The scoreboard doesn't tell the whole story. I don't think we were competitive at any given moment in this match. Honestly, Real Madrid were the better side and deserved the win. And I mean, it's not just this match, the whole competition. You say about the other games against Fluminense, they didn't create the XG necessary to score. Of course, they didn't take many shots from dangerous areas. Yes, that's true. But at the same time, if you watch the whole match, I mean, Fluminense was the closer team to beat Borussia Dortmund in that match. It was the club who deservedly should have won that match, if we are speaking frankly.
No
And
one should have won that match. No one should have
they
to
should
watch
have
that
won that
match.
match.
That's
Right.
ridiculous. That's
We were
absurd.
talking
That is
in
absurd.
the other podcast. They should have won that game not easily, but they should. If there was a team who deserved the win in that match, was Fluminense. And I hate to say that because I think we're the better team. Fluminense is the team who is in the semifinal, but
That
I
was
really
a crap match that no one deserved to win, and to say otherwise is ridiculous. Like-
no, that's your opinion, bro. That's your opinion. But even against Sundowns, like we were not even that good. Like I think we scored the 4 goals in the first half because we have a better squad and a little bit more organized side, because that side really ran faster than us. They wanted to win the match more than us, and I gave all the credit for that. And we cannot struggle against a side like that. I'm sorry.
We've talked way too much about this.
Excuse.
We've talked way too much about this at this point. Like let's just move on. Star of the week. Honestly, I couldn't give a shit. No one deserves it. Like, so I guess I'll agree with you there. Like, no one played well. Like I don't think anyone. The dud of the week I'd give to Ben Savaini because I thought he was absolutely atrocious in this match. But I don't have anyone else that I would say anything special about, or like in a positive or a negative way. Like Ben Savaini was terrible. No one else was good. No one else was like horrific.
Yeah.
Am I
think,
forgetting someone? I feel like I'm probably forgetting someone that was crap. Oh,
no,
Sabitzer.
no.
I could
I
say bad
think
things
you're-
about Sabitzer, but like I'm over it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even count Sabitzer anymore, man. I just get like pissed every time he starts and every time he gets in. So at this point, I mean, who cares? But hopefully he's not in the squad anymore for the rest of the season. But yeah, I think I have Remy Benzebaini in my list. I would like to give a little bit to Kovac because not only because of this match, but because of the whole tournament. I felt like his subs were a little bit off timing. Like his subs were not good and didn't make the team any better. So in that sense, I'll give to Kovac for the overall performance. And it's been funny. I was watching like the Brazilian sports show here, and Rafinha, the former Bayern Munich player, was there, and he was there as a commentator, and he was just talking about Kovac. And I have a few quotes from him, which were pretty funny. He said he wouldn't take him out for dinner, and he ironically cited Kovac as a lovely person with a lot of quotes within. So yeah, he didn't get along really well with the Croat, and even said like, and I agreed with all the guys from the round table saying he managed to dismantle a victorious Bayern Munich side. And yeah, I'm not gonna say that Kovac is a terrible manager. I don't think he is, but I mean, since I didn't participate in the last episode in which we talk about the ceiling that the club has with Kovac, I feel like I'm just gonna give a small like comment on that. I feel like I'm gonna keep my opinion from the other episodes. I think he's a floor raiser, and I think he was good enough for us to get into the Champions League in the situation that we were and the mess that the club was and still is, in my opinion, especially in terms of squad building as well. But yeah, I'm not really excited with the future perspectives, and I think I don't really see him taking us further than fourth place. And honestly, I'm not really a big fan of Kovac overall for the future. I mean, if it was me, I mean, just doing a future exercise, I think I just give it the year for Kovac, let him live on his contract, and then we go to the next one, possibly Honus. I don't know his contract until 2028, but maybe we can lure him into the Signal Iduna Park. But yeah, I think overall he's the dud of the whole competition for me because he really didn't provide me any perspective that he can take us to like a different level. Not only in terms of tactical changes, I think he doesn't necessarily need to change the system, but I didn't see many changes within his system without changing formation that really excited me. Make, oh no, this is interesting. I think we can really be useful during the season, and I didn't see that. So I think not only for this match, but overall in the competition, I'll give my dud of the week for Niko Kovac.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Overall for the competition, I think I would probably give it to Kovac. Like there was no player who was consistently starting and being pretty poor throughout. Um, so I think that's entirely fair. I'm 100% with you there. Believe it or not, after our kind of like testy start to the episode, very rare
That's
for
how we
the
like
two
it.
of
That's
us,
how we like to do
honestly.
it.
I've never really disagreed with you that much before. But let's move on because we gotta talk about the positions in
Mhm.
need. We are going to talk about defense, midfield, and attack.
Are
Who
we
we
gonna
would
sign a
target.
star for the week, or that's out of the question? Like we're not signing stars.
Oh, for the tournament, I'd give us star, but I would have to really think about who because I don't have
Yeah,
one.
I mean, I have one for the match itself against Madrid. I'm gonna give it to Gregor Kobel because I think that's the only guy who really kept us in that match. And honestly, I think Kobel is the only guy that, uh, not the only guy, but one of the few guys that I see the leadership like aura around him. Not only him, but Nico Schlotterbeck as well. But Nico was not in the tournament, so within that scenario and that those particular circumstances, I would give to Gregor Kobel my star of the week.
Yeah, I'll go Maxi Bayer because he did nothing. Well, he should have. There were two opportunities where he's too unselfish and didn't shoot, and then the third one he shoots, he scores. So uh, he pissed me off not shooting more earlier in the match, and then he made me feel vindicated when he did score. But Maxi Bayer, you'll be my star of the week. It's nice to see him return to fitness because he is a player that is most definitely needed this season.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about which area, defense, midfield, or attack, do you think is most important? Because obviously, like, you sold Jamie Gittins, so you're very light in attack because we've had two sales now in the attack with Daniel Mullen and Jamie Gittins. You've replaced neither. Durnville gets hurt in this match. Is it attack? Is it midfield? Because like one of the reasons I was like okay with this performance against Real Madrid is because two guys that can run in our midfield were not fit to start or suspended in Job and Mecha. And then the guy we're replacing him with is Sabitzer. And so I have like literally the lowest imaginable expectation for the match. So is it still midfield because the depth isn't there? Or is it attack because the sales have made us so light? Or is it the defense? Because we also talked about fullbacks playing center back. So there's a lot of ways to go here. Where do you want to start? Like what is your priority?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I think for me, Honestly, I was just listing all the positions I think we need for the season, and I think we discussed that in the group as well. I don't really think we need a cover striker for which is it's been linked with Borussia Dortmund to have another guy if anything's happened to Girassi, and I think Maxibar is that guy. So I don't really think we need the position. If I'm gonna cite all the positions we need, I think we need a depth center back, we need a starting level 6, a creative 10, because probably we're gonna Gio Reyna is not gonna be in black and yellow anymore. He's probably gonna go elsewhere during the transfer market, and of course a cover for Jamie Gittens, who recently left the club. And I think, as I already gave it a hint with the way I will say it, but I think we really need a starting level 6, especially because I think with the center backs and the defense, I think we don't have enough depth, but I'm okay with the options we have starting wise. So I'm okay. I don't think we are desperately need a guy there like to restart, or we need a guy to compete and elevate the floor of that defense. We go to the midfield. I really think that's the area we need much more investment. And a starting 6, I think really, even against Real Madrid, I think, especially one thing that worried me is that our midfield structure, and I think I'm talking a little bit of tactics here. I think we're basically defending a 5-3-2, and the 3 and the 2s are really close, like together, making basically a pentagon just to help to avoid Real Madrid to have the control of the midfield and the passing actions. But really, when we have guys like Valverde and Bellingham in those half spaces, and we don't have a cover 6 or a guy that really can cover that area, and we would see all the time Bellingham and Valverde got in those areas completely free, not a single guy to give it a go at them and just to make their life harder to shoot or find a scoring position to one of their teammates. So I really think I starting level 6 to play maybe side by side by Felix and Mencha, or Bellingham plays there if we sign maybe a better guy as 10, because Brandt, the way that he's playing in this World Cup, it's not gonna go. So, and he's in the last year of his contract. So I really think overall, I think we need a starting level 6, because I think he can be that duo with Joe Bellingham or Felix and Mencha for there to give more stability in the midfield, and then we can give the freedom to the fullbacks and the attackers to play in different areas, and then we can be more dangerous and score goals.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off, and I'm gonna pitch you the guy I would be most interested at the number 6 position. So I'm
Oh,
gonna start with the biggest knock on his game, statistically, otherwise, it's he's playing in the Austrian Bundesliga. That's So you have to take everything with a little bit of grain of salt. He has played UEFA Conference League minutes, 718 minutes in that competition. He's 23, so he's not incredibly young, but he's not old, like by any stretch of the imagination. This is a guy that just turned 23. He's pre-peak. You're signing him from 23 this season, 24 next season. So you're signing him 23 through like 26, essentially. In the Europa Conference League, 83% pass accuracy, nothing special there. But wait till you hear this, Pedro. 5.3 tackles and interceptions per 90.
we love to
5.3.
see it.
That is otherworldly. Also, over a dribble per game, 55% completion percentage. So he's physically very good. He's doing it against a lower level, so you'd be a little worried in the Bundesliga, but he is like very much above average at that. In terms of his total duels, 7.6, 61% win rate, 64% win rate in the air, and he is fouled 1.1 times per 90 in the Conference League, 1.3 fouls given, so he's almost fouled as much as he's fouling. This is a guy you want to give away some fouls as a number 6. He did concede a penalty in the Conference League. And then if you look at the Austrian Bundesliga, it's 2,000 minutes. So that's another really solid number there. He's, again, at this point, it's 1.7 successful dribbles per 90 at a 59% completion percentage. Like, this guy is physically better than everyone in the league he is in. How about long balls, Pedro, you ask? You like a number 6 that can distribute? It's against poor opposition. but 72% completion on that. At 4.3 successful long balls per 90. So that's again a very, very solid number. Point at key passes per game. So he's doing a little bit in the final third, not a ton. His team was good. They did finish, I believe they won the league. But yeah, and again, if you look at the defensive numbers, it's 4.6 tackles and interceptions per 90. So this guy is going to hound the ball. He's going to win it back. He's going to be extremely athletic. And because he is a little bit older, the market value per sofa score is only 6.8 million. I think you're probably paying around double that to bring him in. But I think this guy is physically ready because he is absolutely dominating the competition he's played against. The biggest knock on him is that he hasn't played against serious teams, or at least a lot of serious teams. He's played against Copenhagen, who did draw Bayern a year ago. But like the knock is terrible competition. The pros are there is literally nothing in his statistics that isn't excellent.
Sounds good. And
You
I,
maybe want a little bit more pass accuracy, but I think it's like he's playing dangerous passes, doing a little bit more. Maybe it's like a team thing. You'd have to watch a ton of film to really figure that out because it everything under the hood looks pretty good otherwise.
no, that's a great shout. And I mean, I'll go with my six. And that's a more well-known guys within like the top five leagues. I'm talking about Lucien Agume from Sevilla. And I think that's a guy that really excels not only defensively but also in terms of passes, like 5.75 progressive passes per 90, according to FBref. He's also decent with progressive carries 1 to 23, with good percentile as well, and he has good defensive numbers as well. Almost 3 tackles per 90 with 86 percentile, 1.75 interceptions per match. So I think that's a guy that can be like that the solid foundation defensively, but at the same time distribute and dictate tempo in a more established and more fluid manner than the guys we have in the squad right now. And I think he would be an instant fit to the team aside Jude Bellingham or anywhere else Kovac decides to start in the midfield. And that's a guy that I would say will probably go around 25 to 30 something million, especially because Sevilla didn't get any European competitions for next season with the poor form in the La Liga. So I really think that's the opportunity to snatch a 22-year-old guy with still some space to grow. And it's a guy who also played for the French team in the U19's European Cup. So it's a guy that really excites me. And if Dortmund could snatch him out of Sevilla and bring him to the Signal Iduna Park, I'd be really excited to see him start in the midfield.
Yeah, I mean he is 23 actually, so you were a little off on the age. So he's the
I
same
said
age.
23. Didn't I? I said
Oh,
23.
I'm sorry. I thought you said 22. So he's
No,
the
no, I
same
said
age as the
23.
player I said. He'd be a little bit more expensive, but you never know actually with that because Sevilla did finish 17th. And despite that low finish, if you want to try and knock him because he's on a terrible team, uh, Sevilla were actually like mid-table defensively in terms of their expected goals allowed. So it's not as bad as you might think for a 17th place team. This is again a guy that clocks some minutes. Last season he didn't really play a ton, so I'd be concerned like was there an injury or was he just not like starting yet? Um
I
so
mean,
that'd
he's
be my
starting.
question for you.
He had
Last
2,000
season,
minutes. He
no,
had
the
2,000
season
minutes.
Pedro, the season before 777.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, I have no idea as well, but I
Uh
needed to. I got only the recent scouting report, so
mhm.
I don't really. I mean, I'm not really sure what happened the season before, but what I see in front of my eyes with the his current form, I really think that's a guy which it should be reason to invest on him. But yeah, I could look on the numbers on his past season right now, but honestly, I think he's a good fit, and he's also the good
Yeah.
profile physically as well. He's 179. He's 6'1", so he's really physical as well, so for his age. So I really think it's a interesting prospect that Dortmund should be looking at.
Yeah, for sure. I've talked about Agumet on this show before, and it was only 5 matches missed via injury to a torn thigh muscle, so nothing that jumps off the page as being like a recurring issue, and like he just wasn't starting because he was probably a little young, hadn't fully integrated into the side in his first season, so it seems to be a bit more of that rather than like an injury history, and you can't knock a guy for like breaking out at a later age. So we got 2 good options there, a cheap one and a more expensive one. So I think we did a good job there. But now, do you want to move into the attack or defense? Because you said a backup center back. So do you want to move into the attack next and talk about like a number 10, a winger, a 1v1 guy? Like, what are you imagining? Is this 2 guys we need in a backup 10? Maybe a guy that can take minutes off Brandt, and then like a 1v1 threat? Or is there like what profile or profiles are you imagining for the attack?
I think the profiles. I think we need to go for the attack. I'm not really sure Dortmund is gonna have the financial power to sign 2 guys, a 10 and a winger. So what I think it's a profile that can both play as a more guy on the wing, but at the same time drift inside and also play in those half spaces close to goal. Jack of those 2 traits, if you know what I mean. But I have, I mean, it's not that shiny. I mean, it still is an interesting prospect, but he didn't get as many minutes in the Premier League last season. So I think that's a guy who can play as a 10, but he can also go as a winger. Also, there's another guy we're going to discuss later called Bakayoko, which is a guy I really like, and I would love to see him in black and yellow. But since we are keeping that for later, I'm going to go with my name here. He didn't play much for Leicester last season, but Facundo Buonanotte was once a great prospect, and he didn't have as many minutes in the Premier League since leaving Brighton and going to Leicester. And I think it could be an interesting market opportunity because the guy didn't play much, but he's still really young, 20 years old. Still bunch of great traits as a shooter, as a passer that I really like, and I think it could be interesting market opportunity for Dortmund, like a loan, maybe for a year with an option to buy. I mean, I wouldn't be against that, and I think would be a fresh start for him in the Bundesliga with a guy who already proved who can score bangers from in the Premier League. I think he can do the same in Bundesliga as well. So I would go with Facundo Buonanotte as an option since we're still stuck with Brandt. We don't know what's going to happen to him. I still think he's going to stick around until the end of his contract, or we're going to offer him a short-term extension. So I think that's a fair shout. I think it's a market opportunity, and I think that's a guy who still has a decently high ceiling. So I really think that Dortmund should go back to the origins of getting players that no one saw on their radar and bringing him to Dortmund and maybe taking something out of them. And I think Facundo Buonanotte would be an interesting name for Borussia Dortmund's midfield and attack.
Well, I think he's on a lot of players' radar because like 1,500 minutes isn't nothing. It's actually, I think, a lot for a 20-year-old. 7 expected goal contributions in 1,500 minutes is nothing to sneeze at. So I'm really into that. But given Brighton have sold one of their like key senior attackers, in João Pedro, I would be a little remiss to be too interested because I think there may be a hole that Buonanotte could fill there. I don't know if Brighton have European football. I think they don't. So they are going to need to loan out some players. And if you can get like a loan with an option on a Buonanotte, on a Brian Gruda who had a nothing season, I think that's not bad for Dortmund to do. Like you get that, like even if it's a little bit more than Brighton have paid for these guys, you get a loan with an option to buy at 20 to 30 mil, probably closer to 30 for either. You can bring in this guy for very, very little risk. And in the first year, that's going to allow you to sign the guy that I will not shut up about because he has a release clause between 18 and 20 million, and that's Enzo Mio. I don't think there's another option that's as close, like that's even close, because like everyone else to me like has like a knock on them. So like Buonanotte has an incredibly high ceiling, arguably higher than Mio, but Buonanotte has not really logged the same amount of minutes. He has 2 seasons with a little under, or a season with just under 1,500 minutes, and then a season with just over 1,500 minutes. He's 20 years old. He has unbelievable promise, but he hasn't shown a ton at the senior level yet. Mio has shown a ton at the senior level. If we talk about Bakayoko, like that's a guy who had 2 seasons ago, not this past season, the season before, he was unplayable, dominating the Eredivisie, very strong Champions League campaign as well. But we're now in a situation where he's coming off a down season. If you're looking at some of the other attackers on the market, like there's no one perfect. And then I just think Mio is not necessarily perfect, but I think he's like got the highest floor by far of any signing, and I don't think there's anyone Dortmund can sign that has a significantly higher ceiling than Enzo Mio. So that would be my shout, but I will give another shout to be a little bit more niche, and this guy, I think I sent you his highlights at one point. It's Lucas Stassi. This guy played for a relegation team in Saint Etienne. He overperformed his XG, he overperformed his expected assists, but even if you look at his underlying numbers, they were incredible. This is a guy that popped up out wide, he played through the middle, and if we're going to play a front two, which I really think we are going to play a lot of if we stick with Niko Kovac, right now you don't really have that fourth guy that can play in a front two. And like Mio could do it a little bit, but you probably want him in that like more creative attacking 8 position that we saw like Brandt kind of struggle with, and then that would allow you to play Job Bellingham in that number 8 position that he really excelled for in England. And this player would allow you to have Karim Adeyemi, Maxi Bayer, Serge Guirassy, and then this guy, Lucas Stassin. And he's a bit of a different profile from all four because he is a little bit bigger. He's not necessarily dominant in the air yet, but he is just 20 years old. He played 1,900 minutes in League One last season and another 400 in the top flight in Belgium. In the top flight in Belgium, in 400 minutes, he had 5 goals and assists. He had 3 assists, 2 goals. That pretty much lined up with his expected numbers. So right there, you're seeing that he is genuinely very good creatively. He added another 4 assists in League One, 3.4 expected, so a little bit less, playing a little bit more as a central striker, trying to get on the edge of the very few chances that a relegation team could make. Like, this guy scored goals in a variety of different ways, and you can say, oh, he's overperforming his XG by a ton, but even without that, his numbers are incredible when you take into account his age and the fact his team got relegated. They're not going to get promoted, or they're not going to stay in the top flight if Lyon take a relegation spot too, I believe. Like, I think they finished bottom of the league. This guy is too good to go spend a season in Ligue 2. I know they just signed him, but you got to go in for him. I think that this guy can play out wide. I think he can play through the middle. He's big. He's quick. He can do absolutely everything. And I think you get him in now, and like, you hope that next year your attack has an issue of being too talented and having too many young, interesting guys.
No, I completely agree. I think that's a great shout. And just coming back to the old subject of Buonanotte, Brighton, by the way, they finished sixth in the Premier League, so they're going to play European football next season. But there's also, I think there's a matter with Facundo Buonanotte and the options they have in the attack and the whole João Pedro sale. I think with the Cooper signing from Club Brugge, which is almost done to Brighton, I believe that I think Hustler, what he's gonna do is gonna give the whole left side to the kid, since he's not the best guy defensively, and then he's gonna just occupy the space with the likes of Brian Gruda, who can also play in the half spaces and give the depth width to guys like Adingra, who can also play in that side, also Minte, and we can not still rule out another signing on that side for Brighton. So I think Facundo Bonanotte would be a nice shout still. And as you said, I think we bring really good options offensively. I think there's options in the market. I think Dortmund don't only need to be smart and bring the right guys to add to a squad that's really lacking in some areas.
Yeah, and then do you have a guy that's more, well, that is kind of a true 10. Do you have a like 1v1 winger you want to throw in, or would that just be Brian Gruda? Because I think of the two, like Brian Gruda got like
Needs to.
0 minutes last season. So I think if anything, he might be a little bit more available.
Yeah, I thought the same, but I just thought it was too obvious to shout him out. But I mean, I think that's an interesting shout to put him on the table for Borussia Dortmund, and he's German, like also used to the league, played great in Mainz 2 seasons ago. What 2 seasons ago?
Yeah,
Anyway,
two
but
seasons ago.
and I think he would be a nice shout as that right mid slash center attacking midfield that we desperately need to give him a more option than Julian Brandt in that sector.
Okay, and then do you have well, let's talk about our last position group. This is the defense. Do you have a guy for me in the center of defense? A fullback, maybe? Like, where are you looking here?
I'm looking jack of all trades here because I really think Dortmund are not going to have as much money to invest in the defense. And as I said, I think we only need depth in that area. I'm not completely satisfied with what we have, but I think we are okay in the starting perspective. And a guy that I just saw recently that is probably going to get has his contract cut from the club he's currently at, which is Arsenal. Takehiro Tomiyasu is a guy who can play as a right back, as a left back, as a center back, and I think he can adapt well in Borussia Dortmund. His books as well. He currently has, I mean, he earns 5.2 million yearly for Arsenal, and I think that's okay. That's the range of the Ben Sebaini's within Dortmund's pay bill. So I think that's an interesting option if we eventually need a guy for all these different positions. We don't necessarily have a cover for Svensson, assumingly that Ben Sebaini is going to be that guy who plays the left center back instead of Nico Schlotterbeck. So I think that's a guy who can cover it in all different areas, even as a right wing back if necessary. So I think that's an interesting shout for a guy that very likely is going to be free on the market. You're only going to cost Dortmund his salary and maybe some signing bonus as well. But I think that's market opportunity, cheap, and a guy who can really contribute in that area, just being having the flexibility to play in different positions.
Yeah, the concern for me would be that like the wages are going to be a little bit high, and he's a guy that's had some issues staying on the pitch in the past. Like I think he's had a couple injuries in recent years. So I'm gonna offer a different guy. I think I've talked about him on this show before, but he's a 23-year-old. He last played, I believe, for the Spanish U21 Championship this summer. He's a right-sided center back like Tomoyasu. I don't know if he's played as a right fullback in the way Tomoyasu has, so he's probably not quite as versatile, but he is still young, so maybe you can teach him. And this guy in La Liga this season put up 3,000 minutes. So he was an ever present, 34 matches started, 34 matches played. And I just think he's like fairly cultured on the ball. Like to play for a Spanish youth national team, you have to be pretty good. on the ball. And looking at his game, like this is a guy who is physically imposing. This is not like a little Spanish center back like Kubarsi who can ping the ball all over the place, but is maybe a little bit smaller. Like this guy is 6'4". I don't know what that is in centimeters, but it's a lot. Um, so I just think that he has the technical abilities, and with Nicolas Sula's contract expiring next year, you have Ben Sabaini um, to start the season on the left. Like I'd probably prefer a left footer, but I think that the guy I would have mentioned, Gosharovsky, has signed for PSV today, who's also at Valencia. And I would keep looting their center backs because they got a ton of very like discounted young center backs at their club. If you can go and steal Gosharovsky because it's not on over the dotted line, like I think that's a better natural fit because he is left-footed. But otherwise, I think you go with Torreira, and you kind of have to suffer the consequences or just get like a full-time professional scout because I maybe don't have the time to come up with a second or third left-footed guy.
That's a fair shout. I like it, and I think even I thought about Boscagli, who eventually is gonna go to Brighton on a free as well. But yeah, I think that center back position we really need to take for depth, but we also have to think about future with Nicolas Sula eventually leaving the club, unless he has a marvelous season and Dortmund decides to extend his contract. But I think it's going to be positive for all sides to get his wages off the books by the end of the season, and I think he can still have some gas left in the tank, so I think he can help us during the season. Just don't let the guy alone against like a speedster, which Dortmund is definitely going to do, and we're going to be in a very difficult situation. But I still like Sula. I think more than the average BV fan. But yeah, we really need reinforcements in the defense.
Yeah, so let's talk about Sumela Koulibaly leaving for Strasbourg. This is a young, left-footed center back, just 21 years of age, over 2,000 minutes in the Champions League across the last two seasons, but did miss a lot of this past season due to injury. 7.5 million euros plus one. So not a bad fee by any stretch of the imagination, because he has not looked terrible, but he also hasn't looked the best. So what are your thoughts on this move? Because obviously we just talked about needing potentially a backup left-sided center back.
Yeah. No, I think I've said this before here. I'm never the biggest fan of Su Naila Koulibaly in Borussia Dortmund. I don't really think that he's that good on the ball, and he's not that quick as well. So I think that's a guy that really his future lied elsewhere, and I think we still got decent value from him. And I think his loan spell at Brest really helped to boost that value in France. So I think that's great business by Sebastian Kell, and I like it just to grab some value of the guy that I didn't think is going to add much. Of course, he's still young, he's still a lot to grow, but I mean, I think I'm okay with Ben Sebaini. And that, as I said, it is a left center back position, but a guy who can also cover the left back for Svensson, even though I still think we should give some time on the pitch for Kabar. I think he's a profile that would excel within this system. And yeah, I think overall it's a good sale, no complaints, and I think we could maybe just get better options than Suleiman Koulibaly already in the squad. So I think it's okay sale, and I think we can move forward from there.
Yeah, like I've talked about keeping him around just because he is the profile that you want there. So for me, like you do need to go out there and get a player that can do that because you can't start next season with your starting left back and your backup left back both in the first choice 11. Like obviously Nico Schlotterbeck is expected to come back at a certain point. We've made significant strides in terms of like AC. I was literally talking to my coworkers because I work in a doctor's office today about like some of the ACL surgery stuff and how much better we've gotten over the last like 20 years. And we have. I did learn that. It's not just mystery like PEDs. Like the surgery, we're better at it now. It's less invasive, it's less aggressive, and that allows players to come back sooner. It allows them to recover better, especially when they're professional athletes with really good PT. But at the end of the day, you cannot start every single match with Svensson and Benzabaini as your only left backs in the squad, and they're both on the pitch. Because if anything happens, you're left very short. So I do need to see a guy come in to replace Koulibaly, and do I think you can get a better prospect? Yes, but I haven't seen one. I would have to do a deep dive and try and find a guy. Hopefully the club is ahead of it and has already done that. So yeah, I'm not bothered by this, and I think the fee is actually fairly good. But next up, we have Karim Adeyemi's interview. The player is happy to spend his career with Borussia Dortmund, saying, "I've always said I love this club. I was already a fan of this club as a young player, as was my family. Just thinking about Marco, who has given everything for the club and has always remained loyal to it, I think it's madness to say that I want to step into those shoes. There are still a few years to go until then, but as I said, I feel good here, and if I were to play for this club forever one day, I definitely would not regret it." And that warms the heart.
Yeah, warms the heart, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, I'm not sure he's not gonna regret that because honestly, and I said in the previous episode of course you have the shirt. I really like Karina Adeyemi, but I said in the last episode I like guys like Adeyemi and Nico. But at the same time, in a club that we know that is ruled through nepotism and has several problems with its structure, I feel bad for those kind of guys because I want those guys to stay with us their whole career. And we just seen Thomas Wheeler just finish his role as a Bayern Munich player, playing there basically his whole life. And it worries me because I sometimes don't see the ambition from the club to put those guys in a position to win trophies and be successful in Black and Yellow and put this club back on to the standard that it should be. But at the same time, I'm glad to see words like that. I'm not sure it's going to be confirmed. Of course, the players say anything in front of the media, and it could backfire if they eventually change their minds and go someplace else. But hopefully, Karim stays. I think he gets a lot of uh, not many compliments for the player, such as a good prospect that he is. And yeah, I think he still has a lot to grow, and I really don't understand why Niko Kovac keeps subbing him after the interval or just putting some guys like Brandt or Sabitzer. He's the only guy who is quick enough and the only guy who's attacking the dangerous areas and making us look like a more efficient attack. Like, I don't really understand why he goes out all the time. Of course, it's just a Club World Cup, kind of like a preseason competition, but yeah, I want to see more of Karim and more like minutes for him to evolve and be that player that he says he wants to be for the club.
Yeah, this season, Karim Adeyemi was a genuine difference maker. Got the shirt on today. If you were on YouTube, you know that. If you weren't, you probably heard a bunch of weird noises. That was me getting up and trying to figure out how to get my jersey on camera and doing a terrible job of it. But at the end of the day, Karim Adeyemi is at the point where he could probably play for a ton of different clubs. If Karim had been open to it, would Chelsea not have rather signed him than Jamie Gittins? Maybe it's the English homegrown thing, but from a talent perspective, you'd probably want this guy. Just having him on the pitch, like you said, his pace adds that dimension, and that just gives your entire midfield so much more space to operate in, because defenders, when they see Karim running a couple of yards in front of them, they have to start getting back quicker and quicker. So this is a guy that just adds a ton of dimension to your team. He makes the game easier for everyone around him. There have been some criticisms of his pressing. I think that largely it's good. He can get a little tired at times, but overall, this is a guy at peak age, coming off his best season, saying he wants to extend, and we haven't seen that from a lot of different guys that have been at the clubs in recent years, whether it's Erling Haaland, whether it's Jude Bellingham, whether it's Ousmane Dembele not even wanting to stay the second year of a 4-year contract. There's just so many of these guys that have come and gone who have come in for big money and not wanted to stay for that second contract with his level of talent. Because obviously, a guy like Julian Brandt has stayed for a second contract and was very, very talented, is very talented, but he does not have the same ceiling as a guy like Karim Adeyemi. And that's not a knock on Julian Brandt. Julian Brandt, very good player, will go down with an excellent career, but Karim Adeyemi is one of those special, special players, and it's nice to see a guy that wants to play for the club that could play pretty much anywhere.
Completely agree. And what you said about the high ceiling, higher than Holy Brand, it's so true. I think Karim has a lot of talent and he should be one of the faces of this team for the future if he really wants to stay and he's a man of his word from giving such an interview like that. It's a really brave interview if you think of it, because as I said, that decision can quickly backfire if anything happens or if he changes his mind. So I think it gives a lot of courage, takes a lot of courage from a guy like Karim to say that, to stay at his home country and to stay for a club like Borussia Dortmund with such great fans for his whole career. I think that would be great, and I'll be glad to see him and Nico to stay their whole careers in black and yellow. But we will see. But really brave from him, and hopefully we can see and more profiles like that at Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, and what he's doing by saying this is taking dollars out of his pocket. Because if he goes to negotiate a contract now with Borussia Dortmund, the club knows to some degree they have the upper hand. They're not going to try and scam him. But this is not something you say if your number one priority is money. Because this is not a quote that maximizes the dollar value you will receive. This is a quote that definitely minimizes it. So looking at this, it's so good to hear. But let's get into another player that Dortmund are interested in a not dissimilar mold, because Dortmund are in talks to sign Johan Bakayoko. Other sources note that AS Monaco are also interested as they've returned to the Champions League this season. The rumored fee is right around 25 million euros. We've talked about him enough on this show. I'd be very thrilled with that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, if we get Bakayoko, I've said that a few times in the podcast and on Twitter as well. If we get Bakayoko, yeah, that'll be pleasing to see him get a scene at Adeyemi in the attack. I think it would be a great signing. He's the guy that I've been saying that has the dribbling ability to play out wide, but also play on those half spaces and to deliver dangerous crosses for the likes of Seru Guirassy and even the Daniel Svensson going into the second post. And yeah, that's a signing that I would do every day, and especially for the value that's been speculated at, I think was 25 million. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's around that amount. I think that'll be amazing amount of money for a player like Bakayoko at this stage.
Yeah, if you could have told me that during this past, last summer, if you told me Daniel Malin out, 23 million euros, Johan Bakayoko in, 25 million euros, I would have gone rabid like a dog. I'd be biting your hand off. This guy, this guy's good. Did he have a down season this year? Yes, he was probably disappointed to stay in the Eredivisie for another season, but I think he's a guy that really genuinely wants Dortmund. This is another guy that I think you're getting for probably his full peak. And if you're able to get this guy in, you're talking about future-proofing your attack, because over the next 4 years, you would have Karim Adeyemi under contract for 2 or 3. He's clearly sounds like he's ready to renew. You have Maxi Bayer next 4 years. You have, you would now have Bakayoko next 4 years. That's just you're set. You're good. You're done. You'd have to get the supplemental depth pieces and all that. You get those guys around Guirassy. This guy is on par with Karim Adeyemi, and what he did creative wise creatively this past season, like this guy's on par with that. His creative ability is way past my English. So we'll put it that way because I have been struggling today.
Yeah, nah, that's okay. My English is not that good either. But anyways, yeah, that's a sign that I would absolutely love. Yeah, bring him in. I mean, if you get him and another six, I'll get a little more excited for the season. I'm not really that excited with the squad we have right now and the players that like Sabitzer and Ostrans, they're still in the squad as we have such a beautiful cat on the screen right now. If you guys are on YouTube, but yeah, I'll be a little bit more excited. I still think we will need more depth in some positions, but yeah, it's still, I'm just worried maybe a little bit to see Duranville missed a little bit of his minutes, but he can also play on the other flanks as we saw in the Club World Cup and in other matches. So I think that wouldn't be a problem, and I think Bakayoko is a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. Do you think like if you were able to get both Bakayoko and Enzo Mio, would you downgrade a little bit in the number 6 position, get a guy who's a little bit more of a risk, like the guy I said? Would you think that'd be worth it?
No, I think that's worth it because you have two guys that can cover the same position. As I said, the review can play on the other flank, so we don't not really cutting his minutes that much, and he can maybe permanently go in on that side. And I think in Milo, you got a guy who can cover for both Brent and as a right winger as well. And in Bakayoko, you have more the unpredictability of his dribbling. He has his shooting as well. Uh, his sauce. So I think I would have both guys. That would be great because as much talent as this team has, the better. Because we desperately need more talent, especially in the midfield and offensively. But yeah, I would not be against that, especially get a more risk guy, but who can has a decently high ceiling on the midfield as a six. I think that's better than the options we have nowadays with Ostjan and I mean Sabitzer. I'm not really sure which position he really plays. He played as a pivot against Real Madrid, but I don't really think Kovac playing him in that position really helps him because we all know him being close to the box and he almost scored the goal that made the 3-3 against Real Madrid. That's really where he excels. But yeah, I think overall this team needs talent, and if we can get both of those guys, especially with a guy like Brunt running out of a contract next season, we already have his substitute signed for the near future, the medium term.
Yeah. How much money? So like we have 65 in for Jamie Gittins. You have 5 million in for Mukoko. You have 7.5 for Koulibaly. You have another like 50-ish from the Club World Cup. How much money do you think Dortmund have in the piggy bank to spend this summer? Last question before we head out.
Yeah, that's a great question. I need to make the calculations right now, but of course it wouldn't be much knowing Dortmund. I mean, if we
Well,
if we get that.
Historically, it's we spend around 66 to 70%, like around 2/3 of money
Mhm.
that comes in is what we agree to spend.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I still need to make all the calculations of the total of the things that you just cited, but yeah, I would say, I mean, in that scenario, we have the Milo release clause, which I think was around 20 mil. So that's 20,
yeah,
right? But more 20 or something for Bakayoko. So that's 45. And we still need to add another six and another center back. I think if we can spend around 70 million total, like getting those two guys that are going to make a difference and then going a little cheaper on the other two options, I think I'm okay with that, honestly. And I think
yeah,
independent, if you bring two offensive guys like Bakayoko and Milo, or you just sign one of those guys and get a more established six, and then you get maybe a Facundo Bonanote on a loan, I would be down with that as well. But I think overall, I think around 60, 70 million overall in the window. I think that's ideal for us to have a more competitive squad, at least for the league, domestically speaking. I'm not really confident continentally speaking, but yeah, I mean, it's Borussia Dortmund. Anything can happen.
yeah. So the total value of all that money, we don't know the exact for the Club World Cup, but we're talking about 77.5 plus roughly 50. You're looking at 125. So if you say like 60% to be conservative, we're talking about a little over, like we're talking about around 75 million euros to spend. And so if you look at 45 on Mio and Bakayoko, that leaves you with 30 to spend on your midfield and your defense. And that's actually a ton of money to play around if you're talking about a backup six a backup defender and a six that can potentially start games. So you're talking about there's a lot of different ways you can spend that. Like potentially Renato Vega, who we were interested in last summer, is available for around 20 mil. He can play a little bit as a DM, but he mainly wants to play center back. He can play your left-sided center back to start the season. That's pretty much ideal. He's rumored to be available for around 20, so that leaves you with 10 to spend in the midfield or an attacker. So potentially you just look and get whoever's the best available, because Vega's going to be playing your left-sided center back for the first couple of months, and then he might split time between center back and defensive midfield once Schlotterbeck comes back. So there's a lot of different ways we could maneuver there. And then you maybe throw 10 at a guy like Stassin, who I said had a pretty good season. So there's a ton of different ways you can do it once you get in those like two guys that I think are just like so much, like it's such plus value in terms of what you're able to add. But that'll do it for us. Is there anything you want to plug, Pedro?
No, only Dortmund Dispatch social media. Please follow us in all social media, and please give us 5 stars on Spotify or whatever is your listening device for podcasts. And I see you guys next time.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. You said everything, so I got nothing else to say other than have a good one.
Jadon Sancho to score. No mistakes this time.
That is a rocket.
Royce out. Another fantastic goal by Marco Royce. Haaland's volley is beautiful beyond
Jetzt
compare.
kommt das Wunder von Dortmund. Foulspiel von Inzo an Götze.
Needs to lay it off. We're going to shot away.